Welcome to Midlife Schmidlife, the online community for listeners who want to redefine the middle years and recreate their lives lived to the fullest. Join our host, Liz Applegate, as she interviews guests over the age of 40 who are turning their maybe Sundays into today and going after their dreams. Let's get the party started.
Hey, Schmidlifers. Liz Applegate here, your transformational life coach, podcaster, and multi-passionate empty nester. And welcome to episode 5 of the Midlife Schmidlife podcast. Before we get started on today's interview, I want to welcome all the new listeners as well as the returning listeners. I so appreciate you showing up each week and sharing the Schmidlife message with your friends and family. I do have a favor to ask. Please be sure, whether you're on iTunes or Google Play or Stitcher, please go and subscribe to the show and leave a rating. When you do this, it helps spread the Midlife Schmidlife message for others who are looking for this community to connect with. Today's episode is sponsored by my 90-minute Midlife Clarity Sessions. This is a great opportunity to work with me. If you have an idea that's just brewing, maybe you know you want to start a business but don't know how to get started. Maybe you're looking to make a career change or bring on some other major change in your life. But you need someone who has a listening ear, can apply some strategies and some coaching so that you can walk away with a plan of action that suits you, as well as to do a little exploration around things that could be keeping you stuck. I only have 4 sessions left in my calendar for the month of July for these Midlife Clarity Sessions. So I invite you to go to midlifeschmidlife.com and click on the Work With Me tab at the top in the menu to get more information and schedule your session. I cannot wait to work with you on your next midlife ta-da. Today's interview is one that I am really hoping is an inspirational story to you. Now, it may be controversial. Maybe the subject matter is something that you don't believe in, that you can't stand behind or agree with. And that's okay. I'm asking for my Schmidlife listeners to have an open heart to the guests that I'm going to introduce to you, to not look for what makes her story different than your story, but actually what is similar to her story, to your story. Too many times I feel that we feel like we have to understand the other person for us to get along. And I don't really think that understanding, meaning that you totally, I'm using air quotes, totally get where that person is coming from. You don't truly understand anything until you are walking in their shoes. But what you can do is offer compassion. What you can do is look at another person and say, I don't understand your opinions. I don't understand your feelings, but I'm here with you. I'm sharing this space with you, and I respect you enough, and I want to help you through that the best that I can. My guest is Gretchen McNeely, and she has a very powerful story because at the age of 43, she came out as a lesbian. And we had a discussion before I started taping the interview about how I was afraid I was going to trip up on my words, I was going to say something wrong, something that could come across as being negative or could be demeaning, which was never my intent at all. So I asked her to kind of school me a little bit, teach me, to kind of bridge this gap between us so that we could have a better understanding. And Gretchen did just that. To me, Gretchen epitomizes what it means to be courageous. And I hope that you agree when you listen to this interview, and I hope that you are inspired by her. Not only just inspired by her story, but inspired to reach out to someone who may not be just like you, but someone that you can show compassion to, and someone who you can open your heart to. Because honestly, Schmidlifers, I feel like the world needs that now. So let's go on over, and I just can't wait to introduce you to Gretchen. Hello, everyone. I am here today with my guest, Gretchen McNeely. Gretchen is a design and user experience strategist, a single mom with 2 kids, and she lives in Northern California. Now, her midlife ta-da is at the age of 43. After fighting the facts for 24 years, she came out as a lesbian. Gretchen, I am so grateful that you are here on Midlife Schmidlife and are sharing your story. So welcome.
Thanks, Liz. I appreciate it.
So take me back to that moment when you decided that it was time to live your truth, which is a term that I've been using.
I think it's a very accurate term. There were a series of small moments. There was the moment I realized I was probably gay, which was when I was 19. There was the moment when I realized I would do a greater disservice to my family by keeping that buried, which happened to be my birthday in January as I turned 43. And I did the cliche action of standing in front of a mirror. I was traveling for work. I actually work in California, but I live in North Carolina. And I was standing in front of a mirror and I said, "This is who you are." And then the moment of revealing that to myself and others happened during a couples therapy session on the first day of spring. So all of these very meaningful moments were completely unplanned and unchoreographed, but they just happened to fall kind of nicely. So as you say, that was 2 years ago when I was 43.
Wow, what a great story. And very courageous. I have to tell you, that's a very courageous thing to do.
Well, it's interesting. I thank you. I appreciate that. One question I tend to get a lot is, why did you wait so long? And maybe I'm jumping the gun by answering that, but I didn't know. I knew, but I didn't know. And I can struggle with that question, and I do struggle with that question every day of why I didn't connect the dots. And it really is the case that it took a long, long, long time for me to realize that my self and my feelings and my behaviors and thoughts of so many years ago were actually the true me, and that the challenges I was having in my family, with my children, with myself, with the world, were actually symptomatic of me not being my true self. It took a really long time.
Why do you think that is?
Initially, I would say the reason I didn't act on my understanding of who I was that I attended one of my favorite places in the world. I went to Dartmouth College and discovered this in about 1990. So at the most conservative Ivy in 1990, in the dead of winter, I don't think that coming out is on most people's list of things to do. I knew one gay woman on campus. The gay and lesbian organization on campus was militant and small, and now I absolutely understand why, and I wish I could have stood with them. I had never knowingly met a lesbian. I had no idea of what that meant, but all I knew is that it would ruin my life. It would absolutely ruin my life, ruin my career prospects, my role as an influential person on campus, if I were to take that step. And my God, what if I were wrong? And so I sat with my father at dinner, and I remember opening my mouth to tell him and saying, "Pass the salt," instead, because there was no way. But it turned out to be really convenient to rationalize to myself that I must be bisexual, as many friends are. And so I was very, very open with every man I dated subsequently, and I did date heavily in college, by saying that I enjoyed both sexes and never encountered any problem. Everyone was very, very supportive, and ultimately my husband was very supportive, knowing that I had chosen him. And so my bisexuality, as I put it, was less relevant because he was the one for me. He remains the best man I know and has been completely supportive throughout. But there's always something to stand in your way. Well, I can't think about my sexuality because I have a new job. Well, I'm moving to Europe. Well, I'm dating someone seriously who is of the opposite sex. It's not going to be relevant. Well, I have kids. Well, I'm moving across the country. I'll think about this later. There's so many things that we decide we're going to think about later in the face of the more infrastructural issues we have to handle in our lives.
Right.
And after a while, that issue had had enough and rose to the surface.
So then on your birthday at age 43,
Mm-hmm.
that was just a moment when you just decided, was there anything that led up to that, or was it the fact that you were turning 43?
Well, I was in therapy and had actually gotten into therapy because of this concern, because of this thought coming up that, maybe the problems in my marriage, they don't necessarily stem from this, but maybe this is a catalyst for some of the difficulties I'm having in my marriage. And I ultimately started to find myself thinking that it would be better if I weren't around. And when you get to that stage, and I never did act on that, when you get to that stage, at least for me, that's where you realize that you need to make that change, because it's better for you to be alive and going through hell for a short time than to not be there for your children and family. And so ultimately, it became a matter of self-preservation.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, I'm just kind of soaking that in. Just the, I don't know, you always want something like this to be a happy, I guess, I don't know that happy is the right word, but just kind of like a total aha moment, and not so much one of kind of lost hope moment.
Well, let me tell you a little more about the moment when I did come out. It was not intended. It was not planned. Mm-hmm. I was walking into therapy with my then husband, and he turned to me and he said, "I got to tell you, if we don't work this out, if we don't stay married, it will remain one of the great mysteries of my life." And I said, "Mine too. We love each other. We support each other. He's a wonderful man, but there was a connection that wasn't there. And I truly still wasn't putting the pieces together." And then in the appointment, he happened to reference it. And we were talking about our issues, and he happened to say, "I know, Gretchen, you've been talking to me about, your orientation, but it sounds like that's not really an issue anymore." And I said, It is. I'm gay. It just came out. Now later, a couple weeks later, he said to me, "Do you know that when you came out, you were the most surprised person in the room?" And he checked in with me a lot, continues to check in with me. We have 2 children together, but he checked in with me and he said, "How do you feel?" And I said, "I feel like a newborn, but newborns cry a lot."
Yeah.
It is a proverbial cliff that you're jumping off. And then when you land, you don't splat. And you land in this world that is totally new and completely familiar.
That just gave me goosebumps. I don't know. I'm just, like, to me, that's just, I don't know. It is, I can just see it as such a rebirth of just everything. I don't know. I'm just imagining colors are brighter and just finally being able to, I don't know, live in your own skin and just be full of that joy that can bring.
One of the ways I describe it to people is, I said, imagine that for X amount of years, your thoughts, so what you think, your emotions, what you feel, and your words, what you say, never sync up. They're all different. And you're having to monitor all of them because they're not cohesive. They're not brought together into one personhood. And then, as you say, colors are brighter. Yes, absolutely. The next day, everything was easier. I understood how to be with people, and I have to be with people for my job, but I understood how to be with people. I was more confident. I was more cognizant of the gender stereotypes all around me, the microaggressions, the patriarchy all around me. I was more sensitive to my children. I mean, all these things coalesced for me. And what you said about colors is interesting too, because I gave a storytelling session about this very topic once a couple of years ago, and I used the somewhat tired analogy of the butterfly. But the point I was making is not that the butterfly comes out of the chrysalis because it wants to admire the change and admire its beautiful wings. The butterfly doesn't know any of that. For a long time, the butterfly in the chrysalis has no idea what's going on, that it's even in one, and what's going to happen next. It has to leave. It's forced to. It has to, or it will die.
Right.
And that was exactly my situation, despite the hackneyed nature of the comparison.
So it really sounds like your ex-husband really helped you kind of emerge from your chrysalis. How did other friends and family take this news?
When people say, what is your coming out story? It's a story of coming out to all sorts of different people. And so, as you say, yeah, he has remained supportive. I would say one of the most, not surprising allies, but one of the most delightful allies I've found is my mother. Because of distance, she was living in Alaska at the time. Because of distance, I had to come out to her over the phone. And she ultimately said it before I did. I think she could tell I was dancing around the point. She knew I was divorcing, and I had called to explain why. And of course, that kind of oversimplifies the issue. But she said, "Are you saying you're gay?" And she started to cry, and I said, "Yes." And I said, "Mom, did you know?" And she said, "No." When we hung up a few moments later, she called me right back and said, "I knew. I did know." And like me, she put the pieces together. It's like at the end of The Sixth Sense, right? When you see
right.
that, spoiler alert, Bruce Willis is dead the whole time. And she and I continue. She now lives here. She and I continue to put those pieces together. She'll reference something I did when I was a kid, and I'll say, "Right, Mom?" And she has been as open and supportive as she can be. She's going to be 70. I mean, she grew up in a steel town, very poor, very not exposed to this kind of, what would I call it? These people, this kind of freedom. And she has really just jumped in there, done the best she could. My father, they're divorced. My father struggled, sent me a pamphlet saying, "Love the sinner, hate the sin." That didn't go over real well with me.
No. No.
But has met my girlfriend multiple times, has been kind to her, sends her birthday cards. My stepmom always asks about her. He gets my full admiration for diving in the way he can and understanding it in the way he can. And, when I spoke to him on the phone, after telling him, the first thing he said to me was, "Well, you're my daughter. I love you, and that doesn't change."
Yeah.
So I give him a lot of credit. With a few funny exceptions, every single person I've told in my social circle, high school, college work, said, "Yep."
Really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think, well, we could have a whole separate discussion of gaydar on another podcast, but yeah, it wasn't a surprise.
Yeah.
I've been incredibly fortunate, and I don't take that for granted.
Yeah, because you hear so many heartbreaking stories of things not working out that way and the circle of support not being there. I did kind of have to laugh because you are kind of like Bruce Willis in The Sixth Sense, like you're the last one to know the whole plot of the story. So when you did share your coming out story, is there still fear there sometimes, maybe if you're sharing, who you are?
That is a great question. And I think the way I would answer that is, first of all, to say yes. I mean, the greatest fear at the moment when I blurted it out to my husband and therapist, subsequently, when I went into the next big moment, which was telling my parents, I had to go in ready for them to walk away. And so instead of saying, "Don't abandon me," they have to not want me to abandon them. They have to create an environment where I will feel welcome and continue to feel welcome. And if they don't, I need to have the strength to walk away.
Right.
So imagine yourself at that point where you say, if you fail to accept me as I am, and I am the same person, it's just that you know a little more about me.
Right.
Yeah, I haven't shifted. It's additive. If you walk away from that, you're making that choice. I'm not walking away from you, but you're making that choice. And it didn't happen. And then with my friends, it didn't happen, and it got easier and easier. And now I would say I travel a great deal for work. I encounter clients all the time. It certainly is not on the table to come out to a client. That's irrelevant, but I don't have to. I talk about my girlfriend. I'll talk about a gay club I visited or something like that. Mm-hmm. And it's absolutely part of the social conversation. It's not anything I think about. I was telling someone, I said, I don't wake up in the morning and go, oh my God, I'm gay. I used to. I don't do that anymore. I've integrated it, thankfully.
Shifting gears a little bit, I don't think when I introduced you that I mentioned that you are in the stand-up comedy circuit. Do you bring in your sexuality into that? Is that part of your comedy routine, or is this something that you've been doing for a while? Just talk to me a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, yes and yes.
Okay.
I started out in improv in Chicago in 1995 and later moved out to Portland and got involved in the improv scene there. That's how I met my husband. And shortly before leaving the area, it was probably 2009, some of us said, hey, we'd like to try our hand at stand-up. Very different from improv, not to be confused with improv. And we wrote some short sets and we applauded each other, and I took to it. Happened to get probably the worst gig I have ever gotten before, since which was a 5-week stint at Applebee's during football season.
Oh, no.
Yes. It was absolutely insane. Moved on to North Carolina. I have found the environment here to be far more exciting, very welcoming, great comics of both sexes, of all ages and types. And so that was 2011 when I got here. And so a couple of months after I came out, I introduced a little bit of material. And then I introduced more. And then I introduced more. And then I realized there is a lot that is funny about being gay. And there's a lot that's funny about being a lesbian, because you just start to see where the stereotypes come from, and you start to see the behaviors that are confusing to straight people. They are confusing to me. You start to live in that world. And I have the benefit, if I could call it that, of living in the straight world for 43 years and then realizing my team, going to my team and looking back and saying, oh, that's why they did that. And so that provides a lot of material. One of the things I focus on, and my material is fairly high level, it's fairly intelligent humor, but it is fairly blue. It is adult humor. And whether that has to do with my sexuality or not, that's just kind of how I roll. I don't to do anything political, anything racial, and my litmus test is, in this set, I don't want anyone to look ridiculous except me. And that seems to have served me pretty well.
Do you feel that maybe with the comedy, it's been able to help you, like the word deal with comes to my mind, and that's not what I'm trying to say, but do you feel like this has helped you in coming out?
Navigate the process.
Navigate. That's a better word. Deal with was not the right combination there.
I think it has. I think it's done a couple things. I haven't been asked that before. I think one of the things it does is it forces my hand. It makes me come out again night after night and become more comfortable with that. And the first time, I think it showed in my demeanor that it was a new thing for me to say. At least the first 3 or 4 times I did, there was spontaneous applause. Mm-hmm. And the applause isn't for me, it's for the idea of standing there in front of strangers and revealing that. And that was amazing to me. That was incredible. I live in the South. I live in Pat McCrory's North Carolina, and although HB2 wasn't in effect then, I didn't know what was going to happen. Mm-hmm. And that fear turned into really joy at an opportunity to have it be intrinsic to who I was, because I never had an audience member say, what? You don't look gay, or something ignorant like that. They were only supportive. And so having that venue, that outlet, and getting the chance to be supported and even kind of loved in a way night after night, which is, by the way, all that stand-up comics want. They want to hear applause and love from strangers.
Right.
Was very fortunate for me. It kept me from being isolated.
Is there anything that you wished you would have done differently in coming out?
If you expect is I wish I would have done it 24 years earlier.
Well, I do hear that answer a lot about, I wish I would have done it sooner, but I didn't know if that was the same for you or not.
It's complicated because had I come out, I would have come out into 1990s America. And think of our politics back then toward the LGBT community and really the lack of awareness and understanding that was present. I do wish I had been able to integrate myself earlier. I think it would have taken me on a different trajectory. However, I have the luxury of having come out in a time when it is a topic of national debate, and it needs to be. It needs to be in the forefront. People are thinking about it. Yes. There's a chance for advocacy. And I laugh and say, well, I wouldn't have met my girlfriend, but maybe I would have. I don't know.
Right.
I wouldn't have my children. Well, maybe I would have. So
right.
It's really hard to say. In terms of the actual coming out, the way that happened, no, I wouldn't change a thing.
Yeah, I just got that image again of the butterfly, and when the butterfly is ready, the butterfly emerges. And It just sounds like that was, you outgrew your chrysalis at that time, and that was the time.
Let me though share with you something that still eats away at me. And I have had this discussion, both intellectual and emotional, with therapists and my girlfriend and a lot of people. I'm still working through two things that are very painful for me about this. One is the idea that this involved another human being. I was married for 15 years, and we were together for 18 years. I didn't do anything because I was trying to fool someone. I honestly didn't know, and he's well aware of that.
Right.
But I affected someone's life for 18 years, and I was wrong about a key element of myself. That really eats at me. And I think the other thing that eats at me, and this is an ongoing topic of debate, is, do you remember when I said I talked to all those friends and they all said, yep, I knew.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Nobody brought it up to me, ever.
Right.
And that's a touchy topic because you talk about the butterfly being ready when it's ready. Okay, my wings are wet. Sorry, can't quite do it yet. I really think it would have given me possibly the push I needed if other folks had come to me. And I have had several say, oh, I knew it, but I was struggling with my own stuff. I was coming out. I had to focus on me.
Right.
I really do wish that question had been raised. And I absolutely understand why it wasn't. They wanted to respect my journey and let me get there on my own. But I just wish it hadn't led to such pain for my husband.
Yeah, there's something very tender there. And I can tell that you really loved and cared about your husband and still do. I'm just going to add a little commentary in here as a coach and a woman. And just, I hope that you realize that you gave him a lot as well. I mean, I don't get the impression that your time together was all bad kind of thing.
No, not at all.
And I'm married now, but divorced my first husband, and we grew apart. So whether that was, there was a lot of me coming to terms with my own self, who I was as I grew in that relationship and really learning who I was. I don't know. I just feel like it's a similar path. And so saying that you didn't know, I mean, it's kind of one of those hindsight things, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I feel like you were very honest with him in the beginning, and just, there was a lot of honesty there. And I hope that you can applaud that for yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you. And that is parallel to what my therapist said to me the other day. I was talking to her. I said, I can't believe I didn't know this. I can't believe I didn't figure it out, and there was someone else who suffered as a result. And she said, I think you needed to be with that person to allow it to come out on its own. This was he created the kind of environment where you ultimately could discover that. And I should say there were people in my past who did ready to take on that mantle. I wasn't ready to bear that burden, but I saw the burden at that time. And so I am so thankful for someone like him or like my therapist to kind of walk me through the discovery. But I have to say, it's like, when you're dating the guy that's wrong for you and everyone waits patiently till
Right.
till he dumps you and they say, thank God, why didn't you tell me before? Because you wouldn't have listened. You weren't ready to hear.
Yeah, that is
We've all been there.
Exactly. Exactly. Yes, we have. So, what are some misconceptions that you feel that okay, so I'm this area right here. So before we started our interview, I'm going to just let our listeners know that I let Gretchen know that I was afraid of saying a wrong term. And this is where I'm coming up when I'm
Sure.
asking this question. So please correct me if I say this incorrectly, but what are some misconceptions that you think that straight individuals, I don't know if straight is the correct term,
Sure.
have about coming out or just being a lesbian?
Oh boy, you have 3 hours to do the mega version of the podcast.
Hey, we can do this into two episodes. That's fine.
Yeah. Well, and I'll preface this for any, friends and family that may be listening is this is my impression. Everyone's journey is personal, and I am fairly newly out, about almost 2.5 years. I would say straight people have a lot of it right.
Okay.
The Subarus, the moving in on the second day, that kind of stuff actually does happen. It really does. Not with all of us. But I guess maybe let me frame it this way. What I, as a person in the air quote straight world, didn't realize and then came to realize was that when you say lesbian, it's kind of like saying white people. It's a meaningless grouping because those people have so many differences in them. And so I didn't know that there were many cultural subcommunities within what you might call the lesbian community. I didn't know that there were so many labels they actually kind of place on themselves or place on each other in terms of you get words like femme, andro, butch. You get words like top and bottom. You get phrases like pillow princess, things that I didn't know were there in terms of kind of the way they subdivide their community and label them. This was fascinating to me because it's not present to my awareness in the straight community. In other words, if someone's referring to a man in the straight community as femme, they might be saying, he's rather effeminate, or maybe he's gay, or if they've called a woman butch, they're definitely referencing homosexuality. But in the gay community, and this is also true of the gay male community that I've moved in those circles, there is a lot of cultural subdivision. And I don't think straight people are aware that happens because it doesn't happen with them. I think, and I will keep this above board for your readership, but I think straight people have a lot of things that they think lesbians do in bed, and they are very limited in their understanding. And it is a wide open world, let me just put it that way. And there are no limitations because there's no male appendage present. That doesn't create a limitation. When you have labeling and divisions, you have bifurcation, and you have schisms, and you have groups that don't relate to the other, don't think they can relate to the other, or you have lesbians who say, I hate hanging out with lesbians. I can't tell you how many people say that.
Really?
Yeah. Now, would you ever say, if you are presumably straight, man, I hate hanging out with straight people? What's meaningless? There's so many of them. How can you hate them all? But I definitely, while I understand, and I personally very much understand the need for insular community, I understand why Pulse existed. I understand why Orlando needed a safe space, why everywhere needs safe spaces, and we don't have them anymore. While I understand that absolutely, I also can find it exhausting, or understand why people find it exhausting when people are kind of together strictly for that purpose, or they're perceived to be. And so I'll have gay friends who will say, why do we have to, hang out with all our gay friends? And well, for me, it's really healing and necessary and valuable and uplifting right now. But my friends that have been out for years or for decades, nearly their whole lives, some of them might say, with my sense of myself right now, that's not really a social need for me. And I respect that as well.
Right. We have a tendency to just congregate, I guess, with people that we're comfortable with.
Absolutely.
And that can be a good thing, but I can also see where it can be a very limiting thing. For example, we attend a church here in North Texas, so it tends to be that a lot of our friends attend the same church, right? So, it's kind of like that safety and being comfortable. And I see that a lot. You can see it racially, you can see it, sexually, that kind of thing. So in my days of going clubbing, going to a gay club was just such an energy and a feeling of support there. So I could definitely understand that. And
let me jump back actually to the clubbing comment, because this is a very relevant point, I think, in light of Orlando.
Yes.
The gay, first of all, there are no lesbian bars in San Francisco. Let me just kind of make that point.
Right.
So there's a preponderance of gay clubs in San Francisco that are more male-oriented. What we are seeing, besides the fact that we're not seeing lesbians go out anymore, which is for a number of reasons, mostly because they're in line at IKEA. But one of the things we're starting to see, and is causing some discord in the gay community, is the overwhelming presence of straight people in nominally gay clubs.
Yeah.
And I think one of the questions is, well, why not? It's a club for everyone. Well, do you have trouble finding a place where you feel safe? Because I do.
Yeah.
Do you want to find a place where you will never be hit on by a man who tries to hook you up with another woman so he can watch? Do you, have a place where you can, that your trans friends can come and feel supported and uplifted? Because I don't have that space, so give me my space.
Yeah.
And that's the conundrum, because you want the show of support that the straight community gives you when they come to gay clubs, when they dance at gay clubs, but when they either are kind of overwhelmingly there, or are, as occasionally happens, kind of playing around with the idea of lesbianism because it's fun or for men, that's disrespectful.
Yes.
So it's a challenge. It's a tough one.
Yeah. And that's very true. And thank you for, pointing that out, because certainly in my, early 20s, that was nothing that I was ever thinking about. I had a gay friend and he loved to go dancing. And so we would kind of, dance hop around the different clubs.
Yeah.
And but it was certainly nothing that I thought about that. So that's I'm just glad that you brought that up, because it would be so hard to have a safe place. And as a woman, we already have that. We already have that kind of feeling like we have to be on our toes all the time. So for safety reasons, and also just feeling accepted for who we are. So I can't imagine being a lesbian and then not having that space either.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you're open to that thought.
Oh, definitely. Oh, yeah. No. Definitely. I'm glad that you shared that. And when we started talking too, you even mentioned, before I started recording the interview, how you've really been open on educating, some family members, and just being open and realizing that as the straight community, we don't know, and so I just love that you are open to doing that too, because I feel that if we can learn from one another, just as people, just how great that is. So thank you.
I want to give credit to someone who educates me all the time and has been unspeakably patient with all my really newbie questions, which is my girlfriend and her roommate, and actually met her through her roommate. I did something a couple months after I came out that I always look back on and cringe. I went to a barbecue with some friends as a pig roast, actually. It was an amazing, great time. And just about everyone there was gay. I came back, told her how much fun it was, and I said, oh, but it was interesting. It's like everyone there was gay but me. And she said, are you not gay? And I said, oh, my God. Like, I have this conception of myself. I have this label. I have this otherness that doesn't exist anymore. I am in the others.
Right.
And it really knocked me back. And she's been very, very patient with that kind of behavior. Or, when I was first out, I tend to be very overt with her anyway. Like, I will hold hands or, give her a kiss in public because, boy, straight people push their agenda all the time and we don't let it bother us. But I'm not offensive about it, but I was kind of spoiling for a fight. I was like, you want a piece of me? Does anyone want to mess with me? Because I'm going to show you overtly where I stand on this. And she was patient with me as I kind of worked through my aggression there. And it's a form of celebration. My aggression was celebratory, but still probably a little tiring for her. And she and her roommate have both talked to me about words like queer and gay, talked about the challenges the transgender community faces, talked about times when we thought we were trans and realized we weren't, and talked about the journeys that other people in our communities are on, or the challenge of being bisexual, which is its own thing, where there are deep rifts in the LGBT community toward bisexuals. There's deep rifts toward trans people. And so they have engaged in conversation at all levels with me, and been patient as I've said, look, all I got to go on is 43 years of straightness. I have a lot I need to learn.
So what has been your biggest surprise in this whole journey you've been on?
What a comparative non-issue it has been for me in my daily life and in my interaction with people that I know and that I don't know. I'm very presumptive about it. If asked, I have never been asked, but if asked, I would tell someone if it were in an appropriate and courteous environment. And I have not fallen victim, knock on wood, to any of the hatred and bigotry that's present in North Carolina and the U.S. and the world toward the LGBT community. And I am surprised at the relative ease with which I both kind of slipped into the stream, but also the way it snapped into place for me on day one. I got it. I immediately understood that I had jumped off the right cliff. And I expected to second guess myself. And I was surprised that I didn't have those fears and that second guessing that made me stop at 19, that made me stop and say, what if I'm wrong? Because I'm not wrong.
What advice would you give to someone who is in their middle years and has been struggling with this question about whether they're gay or straight? What advice would you give to them?
With the caveat, of course, that, as I've said 14,000 times, everyone's journey is personal.
Right.
I would say get yourself into therapy quickly, into talk therapy with someone who has expertise in understanding whether it's a question of gender identity, whether it's a question of orientation or something related to that. I would say have that discussion with your spouse or partner if it's going to create a change in the relationship, because it is the case that there are people walking around who have worked out arrangements with their partners to live.
Right.
And that's not for me. That's not something that's for me. It's for other people. But I would say start to have that discussion, because in my limited experience, if at our age in middle life, if you are asking this question, and this question is following you when you wake up in the morning and when you go to bed at night, it's not a question, it's an answer. That has been my experience, both with myself and with my friends who have similar stories, is you have to explore it. One of the friends I talked to about this before I shared it with my husband, a friend of mine in New York, he asked the question that a lot of people ask me. He said, do you think you're maybe kind of responding to just the trouble in your marriage? And I said, I don't know. And he said, well, if you're not sure, you owe it to yourself to explore this. You have to look at this. And so that's what I would say is the thing that is very easy for me to say, which is face your fear.
Right.
You have to do it for your children. You need to, if you are a member of the LGBT community, if you're already an active member of it, you need to model that behavior for your kids, that pride in yourself, pride in community, pride in parenting, support of them, whatever they turn out to be. And if you don't do that, then I think you're failing your children.
That's such great advice. Well, Gretchen, I thank you so much for you reached out to me. So I am just glowing that you did that. And I'm so honored that you wanted to share your story with me and the Midlife Schmidlife listeners and just really honor your courage. I have goosebumps right now. So I thank you so much for coming on this show.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed it.
Hey, Schmidlifers. I really hope that you enjoyed that interview with Gretchen. I can't tell you how honored I am that she reached out to me to want to share her story with the Schmidlife listeners. There are so many things that she said that even as I was editing the podcast and listening back, I was just blown away by her courage and her vulnerability and showing up. She really has become an inspiration to me on how I want to show up as well. Gretchen mentions how important it is to find a therapist or a trained professional who has experience working with LGBTQ issues. I have a link over on the show notes, which you can find at midlifeschmidlife.com/Gretchen. You can also find a link to her Facebook page where you can find out more about her stand-up comedy routines and where she is performing next. Schmidlifers, I hope that Gretchen's story is one of inspiration for you, one where it will help you emerge as your own butterfly and also extend a hand in empathy and love. Until next week, I wish you love, light, and happiness.
Thanks for joining Liz for the Midlife Schmidlife podcast. Remember, some days are never on your calendar until you put them there. Until next time.